So here we go. All right, so grab yourselves a box. Box doesn't need to be super tall, but it's something that we can find control in. You guys have the option, you can use a weight or anything like that that you would like to, but we're gonna start with just some general hip, groin, and hamstring drives. So we're gonna go foot elevated today. So starting up off the ground, back leg's gonna be nice and straight. We're gonna tuck those hips forward underneath us and just start to drive those hands straight overhead. From there, I'm gonna rotate, bring my shoulders to the right, and then my shoulders to the left. My goal is to feel a nice stretch in that hip flexor, really just driving forward, starting to open up the hips. Some rotations. If it doesn't feel good to go overhead just yet, we just kind of lower those reaches and rotations so that you guys are getting a good stretch. Another option that you guys have, if you need to, is you guys can take a towel at home, roll it up into a little bit of a ball, and place your heel on it so your toes down on the ground, and that's going to allow you to get into a little bit more hip extension. So again, I'm just kind of pressing that heel down onto that towel. That's just an option for you guys that are having any difficulty finding this stretch. Sometimes the ankle can block the hip flexor from getting a stretch, so that's a good way for us to avoid it. Good, switch those legs, let's try the other side. If you guys want to get a little bit more of an intense stretch, you can toe in that back foot, focus a lot on the hip flexor. That's going to wind up a lot of that fascial tissue and hip flexor muscle, so you're getting a nice big stretch. If you guys are having trouble finding the stretch, that might be another good option to test as well. Good, really puff up that back knee so it's nice and straight as we can get it. It may bend a little bit, but those are avoidance patterns of our hip flexor. Us not wanting to get into a full end range of motion, so something lower in the chain or higher in the chain is going to want to compensate. So it can be the low back or it can be the knee. So just focus on just small thrusts forward. Good job. Last time around. Job, you guys. All right, from there what we're going to do is we're going to go into a groin stretch. So if I was facing my toe pointing straight forward on that box, all I'm going to do is toe out and point that toe towards you. So now the inside of my thigh is exposed towards the box. I'm going to drive the hips forward, trying to keep my shoulder back a little bit more, so most of the weight's going to stay in this back leg. If it feels good to add in that overhead reach, that's going to drive some of the fascial lines and fascial tissue into a different direction. Good. If at any time you guys are having trouble with the balance, you can always put a box or your chair close to a doorway or a wall, something to give you a little bit of a standby assist. Good. So now I'm facing you guys as I go through some of these excursions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my chest so I'm facing forward, and I'm going to do the same thing. It's just going to pull a little higher up in my groin, and then I'm going to do both together. Good, starting to take some big deep breaths. Make sure those shoulders aren't up by our ears right off the bat today. Make sure that we're able to move well through our shoulder blades. Let's switch those legs. Good job, you guys. Good, so again, that back foot's pointing towards the camera. Nice big stretch on the inside. I like putting my hand in that hip crease to kind of push me into that stretch. Drive that hand straight up overhead. Nice big stretch on the inner thighs, mostly on this back leg. So weight stays back on that down foot. Good, let's add in that little rotation of the chest turning forward. Again, more of a hip drive than it is a shift of the weight forward, so be conscious of that. We're trying to extend the hips towards the box, not the chest. Good, add a couple both together. Good, pedal those legs out just a little bit. Good work, you guys. Let's go into our hamstring stretch next. So we're going to go into heel on the box, slight flex of the knee. We don't want to totally lock out that knee into hyperextension or where we feel pressure in that patella, but a little lockout. You guys can toe out your bottom foot for balance, but try to square those hips up a little bit. Drive that chest forward, really reach towards those toes. Turn to the inside of that leg, and then turn to the outside. Just make sure that when we're rotating that our hip flexors, or our hip pelvis is rotating with us. So as I come to the inside, I feel my belly button turn. Feel my hips square, and then I'm really trying to pull my hips the opposite direction, which should be the biggest stretch out of all three. You guys can mess with your foot a little bit if it feels good to point the toe. Maybe that'll push the pressure a little bit lower into the calf or into the belly of the hamstring. The more you pull the toe up, the more you might feel behind the knee, a little bit more nerve, kind of a zing rather than a flex or a stretch of that muscle. Good, a couple more good ones. What I want you guys to do is I want you to scoot a little bit closer, so the knee's going to be a little bit more bent. And I want you just to stick the butt back as you drive that chest forward. See if you can get a little higher of a pull, more towards the glute rather than down in the belly of the hamstring for just a couple of good drives. It's a little higher in that hamstring. Once that feels good, switch legs to the other side. Same thing, press that heel down, square those hips up, drive that chest forward. Like we talk a lot about in our warm-ups, is I'm okay in the first few if you guys want to round that back just to find some range of motion. As long as we're by the end of the stretches getting into that upright posture where we're hinging at our hips, not hinging at the spine. A little higher up in that thoracic spine is where we don't want to go here, but just tall, high chest. Good, start to move a little bit more with purpose, a little bit more with speed as you're getting in and out. Mess with that foot position like we talked about in the last one. And then scoot a little bit closer, bend that knee just a little bit more. I like to push my heel down as I pull my toe up. That gives me that nice big stretch, so I'm almost putting a lot of down pressure into the box. Good. All right, you guys, last one's gonna be down on the ground. If you guys have a towel or something at home that you can use, another option would be to use a dumbbell or a weight. So if you guys would like, your first option would just be to go into front of the foot. The forefoot is going to step onto the dumbbell, so my heel is going to stay down, and I'm just going to take a nice long stride out. I feel a nice stretch in the back of the calf. If you guys do not have something to put your foot elevated up on, we're just going to go down into our stretch. So we're putting our body in a position that creates that same flex of the ankle, and we're just going to rock forward and back. Just really feeling a big stretch behind that leg. Good. After about 8, 9, 10 of those, let's start to shift the weight side to side. So I'm going to press my heel down, try to maintain a stretch, but drive my hips square to the floor. Good, and then I'm going to get that stretch again, and I'm going to try to turn my shin and belly button at the same time. So we're creating some rotation at the ankle. Good, again, hitting all 3 points of motion, forward and back, side to side, and rotation. Good, shake that leg out, let's switch sides, hit the other one. Kind of pedal those feet out a little bit, and press that heel down to the ground. Nice strong shoulders, let's just rock forward and back. Good, I'm using my other foot to put some top pressure to kind of press my heel down a little bit. Good, let's rock side to side, find that stretch. Wonderful, you guys, good job. And then again, we're gonna let that shin turn. So I'm gonna turn to the inside, outside. Whew. Good work. Shake those shoulders out, shake those hands out just a little bit. Let's make our way back up to our feet. Let's just get in some nice big arm circles, just to get some blood flowing back into the arms. You can go forward and back, draw some circles, whichever ones feel good. Just kind of move those arms around just a little bit. Beautiful, good job, guys. We're gonna go arm across the chest to start, so we're gonna go closing down before we kind of open up the chest a little bit. So let's go arm across the shoulder. All right, we're gonna take a nice, just big step out in front. You can use either leg to start, and we're just gonna pull nice and tight to the chest. A little bit of that old school posterior shoulder stretch. Everything I'm feeling is through the outside of that shoulder and through my upper back. Every time I lunge, I'm pulling a little bit tighter. Good, from there, just switch those legs. Keep that same arm at the chest. Now it's gonna feel like the hips are moving the opposite direction of the shoulder. If you guys started with this leg, you're now feeling like your hips are opening up with your chest. Good, lock those eyes straight forward for a few repetitions so that we're getting a little bit of upper neck cervical rotation relative to the lower part of the body. Good, shake that arm nice and loose. Switch on over to the other side, arm across that chest, either leg you can start with. Nice big long lunge, pull nice and tight. Good. Again, you can be underneath the arm. You can grab a hold of that elbow. If we need to go on top and pull across, the goal is, again, just to feel that nice stretch of that posterior shoulder. Everybody's range of motion and flexibility is a little bit different, so you've got to have some options to go to. Good. Same arm, just switch those legs. Good. You can see we focused a lot on the hips and the trunk before we moved our way up the body into the shoulder. So always a really important way to get the body moving is from a ground up approach. Good. Shake those arms nice and loose one more time. All right, you guys, let's finish up with just one last one for this kind of slower little bit of stretches. Let's find a wall, something that we can anchor the hand up onto. So that hand is going to look like it's lagging slightly behind me. I'm going to take my right foot out in front if my right hand is on the wall. And as I lunge forward, I'm feeling like my arm is getting stretched behind me to feel a nice stretch in that pec or shoulder. So you guys can see me from this angle. I'm just lunging forward, just pressing a little bit of body weight towards the arm. Again, my shoulder blade is back. My heart is open to the sky. Okay, we're not dumping into that shoulder by rotating that arm forward. But really try to externally rotate, squeeze the shoulder back, and just gently lunge. Same arm, same leg. You guys can try some different heights. If reaching up towards the head doesn't feel good, let's go to shoulder height or even lower. You can take the neck in the opposite direction to feel a little stretch in that neck. Beautiful. Let's switch sides, kind of shake those shoulders loose. Let's hit that opposite arm. And you guys can do this in a doorway if you have one. I assume you have one if you're at home. You guys can do this against a wall, against something at the park, a tree. But these are crucial, just really good dynamic, quick warm up, quick stretches. And try some of those different heights. Pull that shoulder back, relax the shoulder away from the ear. All right, you guys, here's our hip, groin, hamstring dries. Back posterior shoulder. Okay, that's a quick way to get things rolling right off the bat. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into a couple of Tabatas this morning. So with that,